back in like 1996, you know, my dad, was a real big dope man, in the streets of, of Detroit, He was from Kentucky, moved up to Detroit in 1996. He was killed, but he was from Kentucky and moved up to Detroit at 6 years old and went to high school, middle school, and graduated, from school in Detroit, but was from Kentucky, And he was, selling dope, real big time dope dealer, and dated girls around Detroit somewhere. And, he messed with this one girl, and after that, he had a baby, Then after that, they said he had another baby. And after that, I was born, the next baby. But before I was born, he was deceased. He passed away before I was born. But stories that was told was that my dad was somebody who was always well kept, and made enough money, to live right, and live good and lavish. And he had this little car or whatever, they said on rims or whatever, a little Chevy, Caprice Classic, one of them old schools. And after that, they said a lot of people were scared of him, but they said like he ran the territory, the Schoolcraft territory in Detroit, Michigan, and he was somebody who was one of them people who ride through, be always flying down the block, everybody knew him, and after that, he was somebody who was like a nice, mannerable man to the people in the community, When he had friends or whatever, and went to Cooley High, My mom, dated him or whatever during this Cooley High, years of high school. But I'm somebody who was born into the lifestyle of my dad ever since he has passed away. I was born after he died. And for the fact my dad lived like this before he was gone, um, that's what I've been going through. The murderers of my dad, were like some people who are still here after I was born. But anyways, making a long story short, my dad was somebody, that always ride through the neighborhood, when he got hot, he was somebody who left the neighborhood and didn't want to come back, And they said when he came back, he was somebody who was, ripping and running, kind of depressed, probably paranoia. Paranoia got to him, through the weed and through the fact that he was getting money in that small ass neighborhood, But he gained attention too badly and became like a higher art drug dealer, to where a lot of people know him, and everybody want that spot. But, he he came back, and was somebody who was me now, I'm the person who was born after he died. I just basically took the spot of my daddy, the spotlight of my daddy, after he passed away. But my dad was somebody who was like a student to the game, but was like a under he was a boss working for a boss, like a dope dealer, that got money lent down to him, to people telling me a story like that. I was thinking that they did that to me too, but I was somebody who did that, and after that I couldn't see myself working for no boss, I'm my own boss, I can't let nobody lend money to me every now and then and have to wait on them to give me money every time they get paid, or have to wait on somebody, what I'm saying? I can't get spoon fed like that, and neither can I let my daddy legacy die like that, That was the word on the street about my daddy, and how they were saying that he was fake or whatever for some of the stuff he did, just to go back and, re-gravitate and put pieces together, the right way to make myself look good, and make my daddy legacy live longer and not, you know what I'm saying, feel on the people's eyes, of realness, But anyways, man, they said something like on the days of living on Schoolcraft from my dad, he was somebody who always had his little younger friend with him. He had a little friend or whatever that they used to say was his best friend. He was younger than him by a couple of years, but he was like my dad's best friend or whatever. And he always used to hang around. They said that the day that my dad was killed in a drive-by shooting, that the guy got out the car, went into his own house, They had my dad picked him up from school, dropped him off on the corner, to go home. And after that, when my dad pulled up in front of his house, he was parked in the car with a couple of guys, homeboys, smoking, drinking or whatever. And the car pulled up and they started shooting or whatever. And after that, it killed all the people that was in the car with my dad, including my dad. And after that, that was the story of how they were telling me that my dad had passed away. I remind you, I wasn't born yet. I was still in my mom's stomach when this went on. My dad passing was before I was born, and after that, I was born a junior. Curtis Wheatley Jr. was me, and after that, I'm somebody who was born again. I was somebody who was born and lived in the same block with my dad. Past that, my dad was somebody who lived like I guess like 4 or 5 houses down from my grandma's house, which is his mother. And my dad moved out of her house and just moved 5 houses down from her house, and after that lived in the house down the street. But it was a full house. And after that, my dad lived there, and that's where he was killed at, down the street from my grandma's house. After I was born, I grew up in that same territory, neighborhood or whatever, and I lived in my grandma's house, and I was somebody who was raised around all the same people that my dad was around when he was here. And I know everybody just about that's in that neighborhood and who was around when my dad was here, and they all know me just as well as they knew my dad, to me being here. I'm somebody who inherited the 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 um the grief and the dislikes of the people who didn't like my dad too. The same people who didn't like him didn't like me all over again, because when I was born, they didn't want me just as bad as they didn't want him to be around. And it stirred up aggravation and heat and tension. But no, I stayed out the way and lived long enough to tell you guys the story about it. And it just caused hell in these streets of Detroit. Um, um, Basically, you know, it's a lot of violence in Detroit, in Michigan or whatever, and a lot of big time dope dealers, and movements, and you know what I'm saying. Shit came out of Detroit so big that it was like famous. And you'll hear about like gangs like Black Mafia family. You'll hear about like Schoolcraft boys. You will hear about like 2020 Vision, Green Light Boys. You'll hear about 7 Mile Bloods. All that. You'll hear about a lot of stuff. Um, like gangs and stuff, and territorial places about um about Detroit. When I was coming up, those were the places where I was around, and they always were the people who talked about the situations of the crimes of my dad. You know, all those were places where I went and heard about those gangs. Like, I mean, those were all gangs that I heard about when I was places hanging out with friends or around people who knew about my dad, and it all brought me to an attention that those were people who either knew my dad or disliked my dad, or you know what I'm saying, or didn't know my dad, or people who didn't like him for being who he is, either like or disliked him, or did or did not know him. Either way, those were those were the gangs or names of groups that had the attention of me when I was out, because that's what I heard of every time I was somewhere. And those talked about my situation of being a child of my dad when he was gone, because they brought to my attention through those gangs and places that there were some people who liked or disliked my dad, and some of them just basically did not like my dad. Um, to better to you for you guys to better, you know what I'm saying, understand what I'm saying. They basically were people who were around that were from people that were around were from, you know what I'm saying, those gangs like Green Light Boys, BMF, 7 Mile Bloods, SEB, School Crab Boys. All those were people who took care of me and raised me up, and always had stories to tell me about my dad growing up and what he went through and how the drug game is going. You know, they all helped me out, and those are the ones that killed my dad, or knew about who killed my dad, or knew what type of, you know what I'm saying, pain my dad was in, or like frustration, or what type of problems my dad was going through before he had passed away. That's how I had learned, you know what I'm saying, how to grow up and go through what I'm going through when they were after my parent, you know what I'm saying, that badly, until they had killed him. Because I was born a junior is why I had to know this, you know what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying, follow the right, you know what I'm saying, go down the right path and follow directions to the right ways of life through knowing stuff about him through these, you know what I'm saying, gangs of people. You know, it just basically guided me in the right direction. Shit. Shit. Basically, you know what I'm saying? They ain't want me here just as bad as they ain't want him here. And then, shit, I just, you know what I'm saying, was trying to make it across without getting caught, you know, sometimes. But it ain't even nothing like that, you know what I'm saying? I made it a long way, you know what I'm saying? They wanted my dad killed, you know what I'm saying? And after that, shit, when they killed him, you know what I'm saying, they know, you know what I'm saying, that he was gone, you know, to them. Then after that, you know what I'm saying, like a couple months later, I was born. You know what I'm saying? I was a hidden child after I was born, for the fact that they named me a junior, you know? They named me a junior after my dad, you know what I'm saying, is a senior, you know? And I had to be a hidden child and grow up, you know what I'm saying, in a way to, in a way of, in a way of, you know what I'm saying, trying not to be targeted, you know? I had to make my life coordinated into the ways of being able to live through the struggle of being my dad, you know. At the same time, they knew me for being somebody who was Curtis. After I was somebody who grew up a little bit, and after I was named Curtis, they knew me for being somebody that they had killed before, or for somebody who was and humiliated, you know, or for whatever situation they knew my dad for being in before I was born. That's what they knew me for being Curtis again. That's just the life I live, you know. And I was just trying to, you know what I'm saying, be somebody who showed y'all the way that my life could be hard, you know, so y'all can understand my pain, you know what I'm saying, what I'm going through, my frustration, you know what I'm saying. Just trying to get back to y'all and let y'all know what I'm going through and for y'all to be able to feel what I feel, you know. You know what I'm saying? This ain't easy and neither is it hard, you know, but you know what I'm saying? I ain't just nobody that, you know what I'm saying, that's talking about nothing, you know.